Truist Bank for the Economic Development Authority of Floyd County to issue, offer, and sell its leased revenue bonds in an amount of approximately $5.15 million to finance a new radio communication system for the county, and also an amount of approximately $1.95 million to finance a shell building to be developed for economic development purposes with an interest rate set forth in such proposal, and to authorize the appropriate officials to execute the documents, which includes a ground lease, a lease agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and an assignment agreement. And of course, this is the piece that goes through Truist, and then you'll see C, which we'll talk about later, is the part that relates to Skyline. So right now we're talking about the piece that is the Economic Development Authority related for new radio and the shell building. And the folks at Sands Anderson are kind enough to nominate Steve to also handle this for them in case there were questions.
Thank you. We can, of course, discuss their questions. I think this is something the board's been thinking about for a long time and considered for prior meetings. So I don't think there's anything sort of groundbreaking that I would be able to offer. In terms of formal procedures, if you are inclined to move forward with adoption, I think the motion would be to approve and adopt a resolution. The resolution itself then authorizes the necessary people to adopt, execute, and deliver the documents that are listed there. And so the ground lease, etc., are authorized by authorizing the resolution. So it's a long way of saying one approval instead of 7 different approvals.
Right. If it's appropriate, I take that motion.
You have a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Okay, and Mr. Chair, this was discussed to appropriately with you last night, just for background. So, calling the roll, Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Booth is not present, and Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, 7B, that entire package, thank you very much. And then your next item of business, again, something that we have discussed before, but this is now, as Steve pointed out, your formal action is the resolution similar to the previous one, but this relates to the work with Skyline. And this, of course, is where the vehicles are.
With regard to this piece, which is the Skyline piece, which is similarly structured to the Truist resolution. Again, we would be looking for, if the board is so inclined, to approve financing. Motion to approve the resolution, which also authorizes the execution and delivery of all the documents identified within the resolution. And that this financing would be for the recreation building and office renovation for county facilities, the rescue vehicles, and additional vehicles and equipment, including the garbage truck and the ambulance.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we accept this resolution and allow the county administrator to execute the appropriate documents.
I'll second that, but I do have a question. We have C2, C3, C4, C6.
Yeah, I'm just missing C1, which is your actual resolution.
C4, C5, C6. Yeah, we're missing. Does everybody have a C1? I don't have a C1. Did I just misplace
I
it?
see C1 in the linked agenda packet.
Okay.
7C1, the resolution.
Okay, so the actual resolution,
It's in our electronic.
right, was electronic. Okay,
That's right.
that's fine. Okay, just making sure. And I would
Also,
also.
to make sure of.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question.
Check it.
That's a resolution, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so should we see the resolution?
You want us to go ahead and print it out?
Should we have it printed out?
Sure.
Sure.
And I'll just clarify again, it was included in the link.
Yes, it was, in the link.
link.
Yes,
It
it's
just
just
seemed
not.
that the hard copy made it to y'all, so.
It's nice to have a hard copy
Yeah.
on
Yes, it's-
voting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understand.
I understand that we're transitioning so much to electronic, you know, we're getting to the point of scanning most of our documents and then shredding so many of the originals, not originals that need to be kept, but
Right.
I still got a natural discomfort with throwing any piece of paper away, so it's quite an adjustment.
Yeah.
This packet would have been a nice electronic packet.
Yeah.
About needed 2 folders.
Oh, it looks like
We saved the whole tree.
my PDF, 215 pages for this agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of trees.
Yeah.
My EDA packet was close to the same.
It's funny, when finance comes into
Well, most financings, you're running through 5 drafts of the documents by the time everyone in the whole process has gone through and edited and adjusted, so,
Yep.
yeah, many trees.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I assume you already discussed this in the document.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Yeah. So, yes, she's not feeling well, so that's why she is headed out and she's filling in for her the remainder of the day.
Hope she recovers
Quickly.
quickly.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes. This is for a personal notes, I'll tell you that I will be taking Friday as a leave day. And I probably will not have any service.
Okay.
Going to Black Mountain.
You will not have service.
There's one spot that if I sit on one rock, depending on the clouds.
Yeah. Vinny,
It's a location we've been to.
yeah, Vinny had a couple of tournaments there. Very lovely town.
Uh-huh.
I mean, a cool town, but yeah, no, I mean, you were.
I think you all probably remember Jim Cornwell, who
Preceded you.
preceded me. When in the early days, when I first was working with Sands Anderson, his wife Mary would always book him on a cruise because she knew that this was before cell service extended out that far. I mean, now there's other ways to have cell service on your cruise, but she knew that once you got a few miles out into the ocean,
He could be interrupted.
Yeah, he couldn't be interrupted. He couldn't work. So that was. They became very fond of cruises. So.
Yeah. Yeah. then I need one. Oh, you give it to Justin. All right, there we go.
Now we have 7C,
One.
1 before you, which is the actual resolution,
Mhm.
but of course, 7C all goes together.
Right.
Right, and 7C1 is the resolution that authorizes the execution and delivery of 7C2 and thereon.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bond purchase agreement, the financing agreement. Specimen DE. Okay.
Let's see, I think the
Motion was,
Mr. Coleman and seconded by you.
yes, and at this point, I would just like to say something for the record, before we vote. Reason why I'm voting yes for these, even though I voted no on the tax increase, make sure this gets into the record, is because I always felt that if we took the minimum, we would be able to still afford all these things, which I am absolutely in support of, and I just want to make sure that's in the record. Thank you.
So, Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Booth is absent, and Mr. Turman.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Have its own hanging file all its own.
All right. Let's see, I think we are down to discussion of tourism program draft agreement and any board member time. I think everything else has been covered unless I'm missing something. I hope not.
And Dr. Millsap, is the discussion for the tourism something you'd like me to sit in on, or is that?
If you can for at least a little bit, if that,
Yeah, it might be a good idea.
if you can. So unless you have member time, I'm going to move to the tourism discussion.
Found my pen, excuse me.
The only thing we got board member time is, we're addressed in this something yet. But usually it's just tourism.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right, so what you have before you is, as you know, Kayla from the town and myself have been working on a rewrite of the agreement originally between the town and the chamber and the county to have a new cooperative agreement between the county and the town for a joint tourism program. And really the new version is, the reason to do this is because our tourism effort has grown and become so successful. And so as you see in the draft you have before you, Pat Sharkey was able to give us some numbers, so that we've attracted more than 3,700 visitors annually and provided upwards of $4.9 million in travel-related local taxes generated within the locality since 2012. So that's one of the big changes from before. And so Kayla and I are taking these documents to each body for discussion. Other than doing some grammatical cleanup, which Angie helped me with, and she's very good at it. The original copy there's one item that has been changed, and it's on page 3. And it has to do with record keeping. We copied the language there out of the previous agreement, which was very complex, and instead inserted the language that says, all such records should be kept in accordance with requirements of the Commonwealth Library Public Records Standards. So that way, whenever the standards move, if they do, we will move along with that. I know you've seen earlier versions of this. I can walk through in more detail or not, or just turn it over to, I will say I shared this earlier with Ms. Cookenberg and Mr. Yoder as members of the Tourism Development, you all as members to the Tourism Development Council. And so they might have some thoughts on it. But those are the primary changes from the earlier document. And again, the town is looking at a similar document in their meetings.
All right, Lauren, is there anything you want to add before we get started here, or you want to?
Well, I'll just say the only thing when I told Dr. Millsap's, one of the things that I really saw that I thought that I would not be in favor of is in item 3 under program direction, and where it speaks about the tourism director management team essentially. That I just couldn't see that the chairman of the tourism advisory board being part of that group. Simply because it's not someone that, with the town and county funding the position, I thought it should remain within the purview of the town and county to manage that employee.
And I shared the same with Dr. Millsaps as well, Lauren. And that basically came out of, as well, our preliminary discussions here on this table when we had started to discuss things. Justin had pointed that out, and you and I had discussed it, Joe and Sherry. I think we were all in agreement on that particular point.
And just for clarification, I would say, the reason I feel strongly about that is because the town and county are putting the money in for that particular position. I look at the strategic planning, the direction of what we're going to focus on with tourism as a different thing, where we do want input from outside sources. We want people to be able to say, business to be able to say, we should focus on this or something, we should be taking a lot of input on that, but on the day-to-day operation and what our employee is doing on the day-to-day operation, I think we need to be very careful about getting that too broad where there's too many bosses.
Yeah, I kind of likened it to too many cooks. You just kind of have to have, 2 people, the 2 entities that are funding the position should be the ones that are actually doing the day-to-day, like you just said. As we walk through this, do you have any thoughts, other members of the board, on item 6, the operating team?
Can we go back to 3?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just for a minute. So as Ms. Cookwood did say, I mentioned and expressed concern about that, and Mr. Yoder's spoke to that. I guess I imagine myself considering this as an employee, and I knew that basically, in essence, I had 2 bosses. So I just don't understand, and I can't get my head wrapped around this, how that's going to work. I mean, if one comes 1 minute and says this and the other follows up, that, excuse me, would work, obviously, if everybody's on the same page, but is that always going to be there in that way?
Right.
And a lot of this is brought on from an employee aspect, is what I'm understanding.
Right.
And if that's so, I'm not sure, are we providing enough clarification? And is it something to where it could be like I'm not saying it like this, but the model that we use on the board of a chairman, vice chairman role, does that make sense? Where there's some type of,
right,
not the definition of the term of the title, but in the role of the county, town. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
A certain
Hierarchy?
Yes, with a certain stakeholder value, maybe. I don't know. That's the only thing I have a hard time getting over. If the intent, as I understand it, is to try to make this a little more clear. I mean, because the town manager and county administrator are going to go by the direction of the board
And the town.
and the tourism, I understand.
And the town council.
The town manager would, and the county administrator would go the direction
To
of the board.
us, right.
So it just still seems to me to be some of this gray area. Am I missing something?
No, and that's kind of where we come back to whose employee is this going to be?
I just don't feel like we're quite getting there, and that's me. I've never served on any of these. I'm not that involved in this, so that's just where I'm at personally. I don't know how you achieve that goal.
May I this year? So I will say this is something that Kayla and I have kind of talked about quite a bit, because of course right now it would be she and I that would be in this role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will speak for myself, put it that way. I would hope she would agree with my representation, but I think we feel like it's doable for us for several reasons. First of all, we see this as very much a professional level position. And so in that way, it's an employee that's working from a strategic plan that's set out in this document through these larger groups. And then even their annual work plan, is set out by us jointly. And then we're kind of envisioning maybe if it was, say, just the town and the county and this employee as an example, that the three of us would get together every month and just kind of check in about how things are going. But that they won't even, right now we're envisioning that person will still be in the space that HAC occupies, so they wouldn't even physically be in either building. And I know we're trying to bring clarity, but I feel really comfortable with this as one of the two supervisors, that Kayla and I can work on this together jointly. And then there's a structure set up in here that if for some reason Kayla says yes and Linda says no, that those differences can be brought forward to the Tourism Development Committee. So we did try to address that concern, and I recognize if there are different people at some point in these roles, it might be different, but I've shared employees like this before, and kind of as long as everyone is professional, it seems to work pretty well. And so we're just going to have to make sure we hire someone who's very professional, but I feel like we'll be able to do that. And candidly, part of why we structured it this way is, I know there's always some kind of give and take, between the town and the county. And so this way, we felt like both of our respective elected bodies would feel like you had a seat at the table in the discussion every month. And so that would perhaps help give the elected folks more comfort in understanding that when we decided to do this event as opposed to that event, that the interest of the county was represented as well as the elected folks from the town. I don't know if that was too rambling, but that's been our thinking about it. And because I think, there'll always be a kind of everybody's always going to be looking out for the best interest of who they represent.
Right. And then that speaks to, if I may, the number 6.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel that it should just be the county administrator and town manager. Because then you're talking about oversight of staffing, budgeting, and the general operations of the joint tourism program. It's those two individuals that should be in charge of all of those things. That there can be meetings with the advisory board and the tourism development council, but the boots on the ground are the county administrator and the town manager. I really strongly believe that is how clarity will happen for this position now. I really, really do, because it's been somewhat ambiguous for the last 8 years, and it's just because we had a stellar employee that it didn't go south, for lack of a better term. Any thoughts, Lauren?
What I've seen, I think Kayla and Dr. Millshouse can work together very well, and I don't have a lot of concerns about it in the short term. I mean, one thing about this agreement is we can do it for a 2-year agreement, and then if there's a problem, we can make changes. We've done that in the past and continue to try to improve. So I would think that those two would be the only ones that would have day-to-day operational control.
All right. Okay, and then item number 7, the financial and budgeting. You know, the one thing that would be good is that, as we're now stepping this up, you know, we pay 60% of all funds received from our transient occupancy tax, or 25%, whichever is greater, for each fiscal year this agreement is in effect. The town only pays a fat $30,000, and I wonder if now that we're on a level playing field here, hopefully, that if we're doing 25, do we up ours to 30 and 60, and the town goes 30 and 60? That we should both look at whichever's greater. Now, we've put in, ours has been, last year was what?
34?
34, yeah. 36?
Yeah, maybe 36.
36, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So it's always been above.
Mhm.
You know, even in a year when we thought we would barely make it to 25, we ended up at 36. So if you judge last year, by any means, it was probably one of the worst years you could have imagined. And we still surpassed. I just wonder if there shouldn't be a percentage, a more equitable funding budgeting.
One of the reasons I think that originally we did the town as a set limit is because they're looking at their transient lodging and meals tax, where we're only looking at transient lodging because our meals tax has to go to capital.
Right.
So I think they're looking at a little bit different formula on judging success.
So do we at least put some sort of a percentage in there? Or, I mean, I don't know.
It doesn't matter to me. I think that as long as we don't do a certain long-term agreement, you know, we can address the amounts every time it comes up and kind of make judgments then. In some ways, I almost wish we would put a set amount for both. That way we'd have it set for our budgeting rather than having to try to do a percentage. I think it would be easier.
Yeah.
We both just put 30,000 and we're done with it.
So we both do 30?
In some ways, that would be easier because at the beginning of the year, we know exactly what we're going to do rather than waiting, trying to do our budget and not being sure exactly what we're going to put in next year.
Right. Did you and Kayla have any thoughts about what it would take?
You know, Mr. Chair, I think where our discussion was some recognition that maybe there should be a percentage as well for both. You see that the town has just a flat amount, where ours is a percentage or a dollar amount. And the reasoning about maybe having similar type language for both the town and the county would be in hopes that this would become a long-term document that wouldn't have to be addressed unless you wanted to over time. A percentage would hopefully, you know, reflect whatever growth there was. And then in terms of, to your other, I believe embedded in that is a question about, do we think the amount is sufficient? We didn't really get into that. We kind of figured this go around trying to get it fixed was probably the best place. And then part of what we are envisioning happening, hopefully, is once this is taken care of, then after the summer season is over, there would be a community-wide strategic planning process for tourism, and that potentially there may be some recommendations out of that for direction programming, which might also suggest a cost. But we didn't want to go out and kind of try to figure out a cost at this point. We just thought that might be a bridge too far to getting everyone to sign on to something.
to Lauren's point though, being that this is new and trying to work the bugs out of it, are you and Kayla envisioning this to be a long-term document?
Well, it would be nice if it could be, with the option, of course, that you all could be able to cancel it with reasonable notice or change it, amend it, but, at least starting with a thought that this could last a longer time unless something changes or you wanted it to change.
And Lauren, your comment was that you'd like to see maybe 2 years and then reevaluate? Or was that just a number you threw up?
I just threw that number. That's about what we were doing, is 2 to 4 years. But I'm fine with it being a longer one. I just think that because this is a little bit of a new way of doing things, it probably would be good to reevaluate it at some point in the next couple of years. There might be changes we want to make to kind of improve the process as we go along.
Yeah, I would think maybe evaluation of this agreement not to exceed 2 years, and that would give us a little bit of flexibility if we needed to come back sooner and want an attorney, but, it would give us an opportunity to come back and talk about, look, if we get 9 months into it and like, hey, you need to see, we can reevaluate it, but at the same time, we're agreeing not to let it exceed past 2 years. I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable going beyond 2 years with a new venture,
Right.
without revisiting it. I mean, there's going to be something you're going to say we can improve or polish this.
Right.
Makes sense.
And I would assume that both the county attorney and the town's attorney will have final review and sign off on it before anything is signed.
Yes, Kayla and I were hoping that if we could get to kind of a conceptual document that both the town and the county elected folks could kind of approve on a draft basis and a consensus basis, then we would take it to the attorneys and make sure that we haven't forgotten anything and structured the way it needs to be, et cetera, and then bring it back for a formal vote. We were just trying to move things along because, as you know, our current agreement ends June 30th.
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, work out what the terms of the deal are, and then we can put that into the language that we need to make happen. But certainly, at this stage, by all means.
And then, I think for clarity purposes, under number 7F, if we just table the discussion about the financial and budgeting, talking about the county and town shall be the fiscal agent, it just flows better that every time you see the county and town, it should be replaced with fiscal agent. It just seems to flow better and made sense. And then on page 4, so, and I don't know, and this is a question both, for really all of you, how do you feel a program of work shall guide the activities of the tourism program and its staff and shall be reviewed and approved annually by the operating team? Did you want final approval by our governing bodies, or, I think of this job and this employee as being somebody who's under, we're not approving stuff that's going on in other departments. I just, we don't have final approval over something in recreation. That would be under Dr. Millsaps, and I'm just wondering if we shouldn't treat this, if this is becoming an employee, a county, town employee, whoever it ends up residing with, that, I think we give thoughts about things and stuff comes to us once a month if that's what we, decide with, under the direction of Dr. Millsaps to report to us about it. And then, of course, there's still the Tourism Development Council meeting, however monthly or, every 2 months like we're meeting now. I just don't know. It just seems like we're making it a special case when maybe it shouldn't be. That's part of what we're trying to do, is make this a more streamlined, regular job within the county and or town for tourism.
I definitely wouldn't stop forward movement, running back, waiting, for an action of each governing body.
Yeah, the micromanaging kind of, I don't know.
And we can trust our county administrator to give us updates or things that, need to be made.
And then duration of the agreement, I think I don't know, 2 years. But this assignment and delegation 10C, the town or the county may not assign any right or delegate any duties here under without express written consent of both the town and the county. Well, we already know that as fiscal agents and whoever does, I mean, that just seems repetitious, and I wanted, in D, any party may terminate this agreement by giving the other parties written notice at least 90 days. As far as I'm concerned, if you know you're ready to pull out of something, you gotta give us 6 months, not 3. I mean, if you know it's not, and I think that's both of us. And the same thing with breaching of the contract, only 24 hours. I think it needs to be replaced with 72. I'd almost go with 5 days worth, but. I think they did an excellent job.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to overcome it more difficult.
I think that we still haven't addressed the overarching situation with this situation. The situation within a situation. Meaning, where does this employee reside?
Well, that changes 3 for me.
Yeah.
I was telling you.
So if I might, some of the things that I can report back, that in terms of the operating committee, there does seem to be a consensus that the chairman of the advisory board be removed, and there's still mixed opinion about if it should be both the town manager and the county administrator, but definitely removing the advisory board person from that list.
Yes.
On the financial, so moving down to 7, it sounded like you all wanted us to try to pick a flat amount. Is that how we were going? For both the town and the county?
I like it as Mr. Yeager well stated, for budget purposes.
Okay.
We're not waiting on a ratio or formula.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's more solid number.
Okay.
I don't see any reason why we can't add more if we see the transient occupancy tax,
Sure, yeah.
Really explode, then we should say, hey, tourism. And that would be at your discretion. You would come before us on a given day and say, hey, we've knocked it out of the park.
That's right.
Just
Okay.
threshold.
Yeah, we could, there you go.
At least.
Could we maybe add language there that would say that, have a number on for both town and county, and then say that could be reevaluated every year at budget time, so long as we increase it the same rate?
So that's increasing. It can't be reevaluated to decrease.
Or decrease, whatever, but I'm saying,
No, I don't.
to say if,
Not decrease.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
but just have some type of language that says during our budget discussions that we could discuss changes, but it would need to be at the same, town and county would need to move at the same rate. In other words, town would put in 5,000 and the county say, oh, okay, we're gonna pull back 5,000 and vice versa.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Yeah, that everything would be increased in consort.
If we would come to an agreement that we're both gonna put in more or take away some or whatever, that we would do that together rather than
Right.
one putting the money in and the other not.
So I guess if we, either one of us kind of budget a hardship, the other would likely be there too. So if we needed to step back, if the majority of the governing body agreed, then it can be a reduction.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're getting at as well, Mr. Yoder?
Yeah, and I mean, we can always negotiate further on, with a new contract, but I think what I would, just trying to think ahead, what might happen, we usually do our budgets earlier than the town. So I think one of my fears would be is if we start putting money in the budget and we would thought, well, we're going to put our transient occupancy has went up, so we're going to put 5,000 more in there, that it would be understood that that money would only be available if the town matched it. That way, if we pass our budget before them, they wouldn't say, okay, gotcha, we're taking ours back out.
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, I just don't want to get us in a spot if we needed to cut.
And what about if, like I was saying, transient occupancy tax knocks it out of the park and we find in November that we have a lot of extra dollars and Dr. Millsaps comes before the board and says, the town has had a banner year, we have had a banner year, could we make a line item adjustment? I mean, would that be possible? I don't know that it has to be.
Nothing stops us right now.
Correct.
Nothing stops us right now from putting money toward anything.
Right.
This is simply the money that's going into this agreement. So if the county wanted to do something tourism related in addition to this, there's nothing stopping us from doing that.
Right.
Or the town.
And we don't need to put that in any kind of writing. It's just what I'm saying, get it funded at a level equal for both of us and then move forward from there.
The only caution I might throw up with some of the language you're discussing is, of course, this is an employee's job. And so if you put language that makes it really easy for you to come down, just be aware they may, if we go out to hire somebody for this role, they may feel like their job has to be reaffirmed every year, which is none of us, well, most of us don't have a contract anyway as an employee, but it does lend a certain level of uncertainty for an employee. Was that the right way to say that?
Yeah, I think beware of the potential that you're highlighting an uncertainty or you're creating an uncertainty that you don't want to create.
Gotcha.
Thank you. That's why he was possible. All right. And then, if we're not just in the other things to move the discussion, I guess we didn't use this, but I intended to move the definition of fiscal agent that's in here further up in the discussion, so it's a little bit clearer, but the same language. Replacing the places where it says county or town with, consistently with fiscal agent, and that kind of gets to, of course, the question about where it is, but for right now, it'll say fiscal agent.
But the overarching situation is we still have to come up with an idea of where this employee is going to reside.
Where their employment resides.
Where their employment resides, correct. And I don't know that I want to leave here today with that still ambiguous, because like Justin said, that changes things in another part of the document.
Okay. And then, did you want me the other things? And we can, if Ms. Chair, Ms. Beckman, we go back to that just to round out the things I know that I can do so far. Remove the sentence, or the part of the sentence in the top of page 4 about final approval by the governing bodies. And then duration of the agreement, we talked about 2 years. And then potentially moving the termination to 180 days from 90 days. And 72 hours as opposed to 24 hours per breach. Sir?
So what's the point of lengthening that? If one party wants to get out of the agreement, or if there's a breach of contract, I mean, if the town breaches a contract, I want to get out of it too, if they're doing something that I don't agree with.
I don't know, I just always feel like you gotta have a little bit more time to get your feet underneath you for anything. I mean, I just think that if somebody's gonna get out of a contract and they do it on a Friday, then we'd have to, bust around trying to get everything squared away by the following Monday. If you have the 72 hours, they can't leave. I mean, and make it business days, not just, 72 hours. I don't know. I just never like to be left holding the bag like that on a situation.
I mean, what's the breach of, what would be the potential breach of contract that we're not paying our share? Is that?
Well, that would be the biggest thing, and then.
That would be the main one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not paying your share, if in our case, if the town was paying their share, then I'd want to get away.
Yeah. All right, we can leave that 24.
I don't know what the advantage either way is. That's what I'm asking. I don't really see it.
Well, I guess maybe if you went just a little bit longer than 24, if it was an error, then you could fix it.
Okay. Sure.
That was my only thinking about that, but I don't know. Steve's standing there.
Oh, Steve's come to the microphone.
We're talking about is it like a termination and event of default clause?
Yes. Well, it says,
I think it's generally speaking.
Yeah.
It's just general.
So you have a right to terminate for any reason upon 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really state.
Yeah, that was what was in, if I might, Mr. Chair, that was what was in the previous version, said they could terminate, and we just picked that language up. But for...
I haven't reviewed the document yet, of course, because we're still in the early stage, and maybe this is a little further down the road, but usually, I think you mentioned a 6-month termination. It's actually a non-renewal notice that you're talking about with the 6 months.
Kind of.
Typically, I mean, termination in event of default, it's not uncommon to see. You give notice in writing, and then 10 days to cure the default, and then you can terminate after that, or something like that. I wouldn't get too hung up on an issue like that. I'd recommend some languages, or some language.
Yeah, the stuff from the former agreement, there was some things that maybe weren't as desirable in that agreement that I think both attorneys can really tighten up and clean up from a legal, as Jerry would say, a more legal matter.
Well, rather than us sitting here and going through each one, maybe the best case would be to let our attorney look good and give us recommendations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make these, make some of the changes based on the conversation today and talk to Kayla and then send it to Steve and.
Then she can send it if she wants to Mr. Short.
Yeah. And then that kind of leaves the outstanding issues then are still about exactly what the financial language should be, the operating committee, and of course where the employees' employment rests.
So let's discuss the operating committee. I mean, what do you think of number 6A, Lauren? As another member of the Tourism Development Council.
I think I've already spoke to that pretty much.
County administrator and town manager, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from the way that it's worked in the past, that the advisory board hasn't even hardly been involved in anything. They've given some basic oversight advisory, but it's not really, they haven't hardly been involved whatsoever, so It's surprising to me to see that there.
Right.
I mean, if we wanted anybody, maybe the chairman of the TDC, but I don't see that as being, necessary. I just, the people that are putting the money, town and county are putting money in,
Yep.
to hire their employees, so they need to be an oversight. The way it's written would be a deal killer for me.
Well, if you are okay, I feel like, we've got enough guidance to kind of move to a new version and noting the concern, as a possibility as well to talk to Kayla and get something to Steve and kind of go from there.
I think that sounds good.
Are you okay with that? All right. Thank you for that guidance, and you have board member time and adjournment left on your calendar.
I think I'm going to get on my way. Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Good
everything.
to see
Thanks for
you
watching.
too.
Good to see you all.
We'll go ahead and explain this to
Mr. Yoder, did you happen to get a chance to review that email I sent you?
Yes, I would be in favor of both, thank you.
Okay.
Me too.
Just to try to figure out how to get this happening. So for a period of time, you guys may have heard me here on the board make reference to a project I've been working with Mr. Clark, a couple of projects. Mr. Turner's been a part of that. Both of these involve our districts. It's something that's been very near and dear to my heart with these two families looking at a way to potentially honor some folks that have given the ultimate sacrifice in different ways. And fortunately, MEDOT has the program to do that. What I have sent you, and you have copies of two draft resolutions that will be making a motion to approve in order to get two memorial highways named for some fallen heroes from our community. One being an individual involved in the Vietnam War, and one who's killed in the line of duty. You have those resolutions before you. I think the family deserves it. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here today, but I would like to ask if the board would be so agreeable that we can invite them maybe to our night meeting on June 22nd and formally present each family, a representative or whoever wants to come, a formal copy, nice copy of these resolutions. Mm-hmm. There is a cost incurred with one of these, the resolution for the Cox family for the Vietnam Memorial intersection. We would be responsible for the sign cost. The other we would not, because it was an officer killed in the line of duty. Mm-hmm. So the cost, as you sent an email from Mr. Clark, would be $1,000. I'd be asking for the county to absorb that cost as well. And that's the brief and short of it. If anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those to the best of my ability.
Would you want to wait until the families they want to be there until we make the actually vote on them, or?
I've asked them both throughout the duration of this process, even last night and as during today, and they both expressed to move forward because this has taken some time to get through this. But I would, and Dr. Millsap's back with us now, but I think they both would be very open to coming and us formally presenting them a document, maybe a framed document, something.
Right.
I think that would be okay if you all would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And I would ask maybe the press if you could maybe hold this until then. If you could do that, that would be just in favor of the family to be here for. I would ask for that to be an agenda item on our night meeting on June 22nd.
So you don't want any mention of this in the press?
I would ask that it not be.
Just clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
No problem.
Thank you.
until the next,
Right.
yeah, the next
May.
one.
That'll give us time to get it executed, sent back to the VDOT, make sure there's no other boundaries. I went through delegate's office to get this, try to get this thing worked out. So it's been a lot. I did not imagine there would be so much
Red tape.
red tape. So just, that would give us about a little over a month to make sure everything, and they would be, I guess my vision would be they would be handed a signed copy, executed copy from the chairman or county administrator, however that may work, on this
We
resolution.
all sign.
Yeah, we can all sign it
Right.
and just give them a nice framed copy on a nice piece of paper,
That'd be good.
with a formal presentation. I think that would be outstanding.
Absolutely.
So,
That would be at our May 25th meeting or
June 22nd
June
night meeting.
22nd night meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Signed by structure so that will be signed by all 5 of you and suitable for framing.
Is that okay, Mr. Yoder, with you?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it be appropriate, I would like to make a motion, that the county adopt a draft resolution before you, naming the intersection Route 619 Horse Ridge Road and Route 631 Sumter Road in Floyd County as the James Michael Cox Vietnam Memorial intersection.
Second.
And incurring any cost producing, placing, or maintaining the signs calling attention to this naming. I'm sorry, Mr. Yoder.
You second that too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I'll call the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Booth is absent, Mr. Sherman.
Yes.
All right. Resolution, voted to 6, or Route 6.
And I would,
31.
just for the record, I would like to note that I have spoken to Mr. Booth, and he was agreeable with that. I don't want to leave him out of that.
Did you do the other one already?
No,
That representative,
To make my motion, I have to turn the chair over to you until I make a motion. As the chair, I can't make a motion.
Okay.
So, all right. And if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion to name, Route 8 in Floyd County from the Montgomery County line south to the north cooperative limits of the town of Floyd near Route 685, Needmore Road, is Scott Allen Hilton Memorial Highway.
All right, so is there a second for this?
second. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. And I'll go ahead and call the roll, I guess. So, Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
and Mr. Booth is absent. All right.
This, just for clarification, this represents both of our districts as the way that,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I know that Sunday was the anniversary, and I remember this day, and I just think this is a wonderful thing that we were able to do.
thank you. I had hoped if all the stars would align that maybe we could have done something more formal at the memorial service,
Right.
but, you know, Mr. Clark and his staff's been great to work with, and unfortunately, there's just a lot of moving pieces to these things, and just didn't come together, so nonetheless, I think we can still yet honor these families and invite them to be a part of our meeting, and give them something that would be great. So again, to each of you, I thank you, Mr. Yoder, thank you for participating remotely and agreeing to this.
One thing I'd like to suggest, just kick this around when the signs arrive. Maybe we have like a memorial
So,
as you're at Needmore. Invite representatives from Christiansburg PD, and Hillsville PD, and the family. And let them
Yeah.
see us put a sign up or whatever.
that'd be good. Yeah,
But I believe each department should, naturally our department,
absolutely.
and then, maybe work it out to family, do a memorial family, for Mr. Fox.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And if we could invite both of those families, just make sure that's clear for the June 22nd. I can help facilitate that as much as needed.
All right. 3 stars next to all those.
Thank you. Thanks again to everybody. Appreciate it very much.
long process.
Very long. Thank you to the press for your understanding. Appreciate that.
There was one other thing in our packet, that all the way at the back about
Mr. Wirt.
Mr. Wirt. Did you see that, Lauren?
Oh, the EMS?
Yeah, that he will not serve on the, and that Cindy put something
Yes.
at the bottom on a Post-it note.
Yes.
Yes, I'm assuming we'll advertise for that, but
Yes,
But,
yes.
and then,
yeah, I know what you're talking about, Linda.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
asking about those.
Okay.
right. I mean, do we need anything, do we have to kind of have a consensus? I guess, I don't know.
The chair can make that happen, I believe.
I think so.
If there's any objection, then let me know. How's that?
You know, I think it'd be nice if we could do a recognition for him, or proclamation. Because I was just thinking about when even the rescue started, him and Dick Dale that worked for the sheriff's department. And I think it was Walter Akins was sheriff at that time. You know, they really helped volunteer rescue started, you know, put a lot of work into it. And Ford's been involved in that ever since I know Ford worked, so. I think it'd be good if we did recognize him.
Years of service.
Anything else?
I think I am fresh out.
You ready? I will ask for your own motion to adjourn.
So moved.